I'm Audrey Stolze. I'm an International Innovation Projects Manager here at the Munich University of Applied Science, and today we are going to talk about virtual teams. So what comes to your mind when you think of a virtual team? Team members geographically distributed everywhere around the world. Maybe that digital nomad that is sitting somewhere on his portable office with a laptop, a mobile on his side. Well, that was certainly the case until 2020. Now, this world pandemic that we have suddenly required most people to work from home. And all those barriers that we had for virtual work that were impossible for some employers to make it happen, we had to overcome it. And virtual work was made feasible also on local level. But what characterizes a virtual team? Hertel and colleagues published in 2005 a literature review on the topic where they proposed the following definition for virtual teams. It consists of 2 or more persons who collaborate iteratively to achieve common goals. And while communicating and coordinating their teamwork, they do it all via electronic media. Lin and colleagues published a work in 2008 where they tried to understand what generates the performance of virtual teams and what can lead to the satisfaction of the work that is being done. And they realized that the key thing is the building of the relationship between the team members and the cohesion that they have to have as a team. And for that, they need communication, because these are the aspects that generate the coordination of the teamwork that leads to the team performance and leads to the satisfaction of the work that is being made. But what makes a virtual team work effective? First, you need the right team. The team composition, the roles, the responsibilities need to be clear. There also needs to be leadership, and it's key to have the right individual mindset to go through it. And then you need the right processes, the teamwork that is going to be supported by the right digital tooling that enables the effective collaboration and communication among the team members. But the number one rule is that there needs to be trust. So how to form the right team, how to develop the right process, and how to build trust. To discuss this and other key questions, I have with me today Ms. Chris Jarrett. Chris is originally from New Zealand. She has been working with corporations for the last 40 years. In her role as project and program manager, and more recently as individual and team coach, Chris has worked with entrepreneurs and with leaders and international teams inside corporations throughout the world. So my first question to you, Chris, today is regarding this team building. How to create that bond, how to develop trust in virtual teams?
So I think the main thing here is with any team, you need to create a team identity and a team culture. So this starts off with what are your shared objectives and your shared motivations. Why are you a team? What are you creating? And then it's about that culture. So many times I see teams that are working so much on what we do and how we do it, and avoiding dealing with the how do we want to be together. So I recommend any team spends time up front talking about what is the culture of our team. Is respect, individual respect, important for us? What are our values? And especially, how do we want to be when things go wrong? Because projects go wrong. So for example, when things go wrong, I commit to talk to you directly. That is my commitment to you. That is a team agreement. When things go wrong, we talk rather than writing long emails. And on a regular basis, I recommend teams check in on how they're actually doing against their culture and value. Say on your weekly meeting, how are we going? We're going really well. We're going not so well. Oops, we've got a bit of a problem. So come back to your team culture, come back to your values and reform, because those things are evolving and need to be checked in on a regular basis. And then when you go to virtual teams, you have a whole lot of other challenges. How do you communicate? What do you do in terms of time zones? And one of the hardest things, I think, for any virtual team is the lack of the coffee machine chats, the lack of the meeting the person in the hall, and also not overhearing other conversations and knowing what else is going on. So my tips: communicate, communicate, communicate. When you're in your Zooms or your Microsoft Teams, have the video on. We're not machines, we're social animals. The social connection is really, really important for us. And also ensure that all voices are actually heard. You're going to be working with people from cultures where there are people more extroverted, more self-confident, and others where they're more quiet, introverted. And the people who are introverted often in those meetings, both ordinary meetings and virtual meetings, may not be heard, but they have an important contribution to make. So how does the team as a group want to ensure that every voice is heard? Maybe by checking in with everyone and giving everyone a chance to speak, making sure the chat is active. And especially for young professionals, the lack of these coffee machine chats does make it more difficult for you. The people that already are more established, more experienced, they already have a network, they already probably have a bigger overview of what's going on. So my suggestion to you is to actually pair with a more experienced person on the team, get their advice, get their support, help them, and get an overview from them.
In many cases, virtual teams are formed by individuals from different countries, and hence they have different cultures. So what would be your top 3 tips for students and young professionals joining international virtual teams for the first time?
Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary, said, "When 2 diplomats meet, there are at least 6 perceptions to manage. How the 2 perceive themselves, how they perceive each other, and how they think the other one perceives them." One of the real challenges that we have in international teams is misunderstandings. The team language may not be the first language for everyone, and even if it is, there are significant differences between American English and English English. So language may seem clear, but it may not be. I had one person from a foreign culture who regularly would take something completely different out of a meeting than everyone else. So we needed to level set after meetings and just make sure that everyone had a common understanding. And then you've got culture thrown in. So I'm a Kiwi from New Zealand, I work in Germany. The German culture is pretty direct. So in a German meeting, it's quite acceptable for me to say, this project is delayed. In a culture which is more face-oriented, such a statement may seem impolite and even disrespectful. So it's really important to understand that your culture may be different from the other people, and misunderstandings actually, they will occur. They just will. And different is different. It's not necessarily wrong, it's not wrong, it's just different. And here I take the statement from Stephen Covey, seek first to understand and then to be understood.
And regarding the teamwork, virtual teams require a lot of coordination among team members to combine asynchronous individual work with synchronous exchanges for alignment. In your experience, what are the key elements of this coordination?
I think one of the most important things is to establish clarity and transparency. I know what my task is, I know what my timeline is, and I also know what dependencies there are. I know who's going to be providing input for me and where my input is going to go. And then establish points of alignment. All of these things need to align and communicate. Talk to each other, pick up the phone, WhatsApp, write short, clear emails rather than long emails. And what's really important is when there's a problem, communicate that in a timely fashion. What I'm seeing, especially at the moment, is that people who are less experienced, newer to the team, maybe have a little bit of fear of saying, I'm not really sure if I understood what that point was, or I'm not really sure if I understand what I need to do. So ask for clarification, ask for support, and ask for assistance. Asking for help is not failing. Not delivering on time, not delivering on quality, that is failing. Asking for support is a great way of stopping that happening. And another thing I notice in meetings is status updates tend to roll into trying to solve the problem. So I'd really recommend separate your status update meeting, your daily stand-up or whatever you do, which is about what I've done, what I'm doing and any issues, from actually trying to solve any problems. Those, okay, you and I will take this offline. Workshops, status updates, separate meetings.
And regarding team performance, what are the characteristics of the best performing virtual teams you have coached?
And this is, again, they have a team agreement in place. They have already agreed and committed to the culture and the values that they want to have. They have effective communication in place, and they treat each other with mutual respect. You mentioned before that trust was one of the number one things. Those are the things that build trust and allow the team to function and to perform.
Now let's talk a bit about conflict management. From your experience coaching international virtual teams, what are the main sources of conflicts?
It's a bit surprising, but one thing I've seen is actually politics. I worked with one team and we had people from two different countries who were actually at war with each other at the time. So, especially at the moment where we have quite a interesting political environment, I would strongly suggest that you think about whether or not politics are part of your project and maybe take politics. This is not part of our culture, this is not what we do in the project. We've already talked about misunderstandings and cultural differences. Another source of conflict I see comes from people's behaviour when they're under stress. And the problem here is that when you're stressed, surprisingly enough, you're working from a wrong part in your brain. You're actually dumber. You lose something like 20 IQ points when you're really stressed. Apart from that, you're not particularly creative. You don't regulate your own emotions very well. And you can actually be pretty unkind and downright mean. So there are a lot of studies showing exactly these behaviours.
And what should virtual teams do in order to avoid such conflicts to arise in the first place?
So one of the first things is actually managing yourself. So recognising things that get you stressed and then stepping back, centering yourself, regulating yourself, managing your emotional intelligence. Because not only is it the impact on you getting dumber and meaner, it's also the impact on others. So if I'm in a stress state, you're going to see that, you're going to become stressed. I'm going to see that you're stressed, and hey presto, we've created this horrible mutual stress society. And the problem with that is the behaviours that come out of it. The Gottman Group has done a lot of research about relationship systems, whether that is a couple, a family, a project team. And they've identified 4 toxic behaviours, and those behaviours are blame, you're always late, contempt, defensiveness, that's not my job, that's got nothing to do with me, and stonewalling. I'm just going to sit back and ignore everyone. And of those 4 behaviours, contempt and blame are the most dangerous. In a marriage, they are most likely to end in divorce. In a team, they can destroy your team. So one of my key tips here is assume good intention and manage yourself.
Once conflict happens, what are your top 3 tips for team members to try to resolve it without escalating issues?
First thing to do is go back to your team agreement. What commitment did you make about when things go bad? And you made that commitment to behave in a respectful way, to talk to the person, do that. And before you're actually having something, if there is a stress, actually come back to your emotional intelligence, center yourself, calm the emotions, leave the emotions out of the meeting. And in the meeting, communicate cleanly. It's not, you're always late, every delivery is late. It is, last week we missed this delivery. So clear communication based on facts, keep the emotion out. And one thing I think is really useful is sometimes when there is a problem, we're looking at the other person through this problem. So we're looking at a delay and I'm seeing the other person on the other side of it. Sometimes it helps to actually take the problem, put it out in front and think about how we can together solve this. So this is a problem, we have a delay. How do we together solve this problem rather than seeing you in opposition to me? And if necessary, get someone in to help, get a mediator.
Sometimes, due to diverse professional and personal reasons, a team member leaves. What would be your advice for the remaining team members in this situation? How to overcome the loss of a team member?
I think the most important thing to do at the beginning is to honour the past. Say your goodbyes and complete that part of the team life cycle, that relationship. And then take stock and assess impact. What needs to be done? How does the team need to be reconfigured? What's the impact on time, on budget, and on quality? And who needs to know? Whose expectations need to be managed?
And to conclude, one last question. If you consider the life cycle of virtual teams, once the project ends and team disassembles, there are a lot of opportunities for lessons learned. As a career development coach, what would be your final advice for students and young professionals who are about to embark in such endeavor so they can, at the end, be mindful and reflect on their learnings?
Well, I am a total believer in lifelong learning, and I think I get that from my DNA because my mother at the age of 92 started doing Tai Chi. So lifelong learning. And in any project there are cycles. We've got the creative startup phase, we've got the doing, we've got the completing, ending, lessons learned, and then we've got the integrating, understanding the lessons, and maybe getting ready for the next project. So in each of those phases, it's important to ask yourself, what do I want to learn? What am I learning here? What do I want to start doing? What do I want to stop doing? And what do I want to continue doing? And on an ongoing basis, ask yourself, what new skills do I want to develop? And which of my existing skills do I want to further develop? And I really recommend that at least once a year or more regularly, you ask yourself, how do I want my CV to look in 12 months? What's going to be better about it? How do I make myself more marketable?
That's a wonderful final advice. So Chris, thank you very much for sharing all these advices with us today. And now it's up to you to take it all into account on your next endeavor working on a virtual international team. Thank you for watching.
Go for it.